Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today I will be going through the 6 books that I would like to reread in 2023. So for most of my life, I have really struggled to reread books. I'm not often one to grab a book that I've already read because I'm so focused on getting to the long list of books that I have not yet read. But obviously the goal of a reader is to find books that you really love and to enjoy them more than once. Last year was my first time doing this. I chose 6 books that I wanted to reread throughout the year. Usually I read about one every 2 months, and that worked out pretty well for me. So I'm going to do something similar this year, and hopefully as I kind of force myself to reread books, it'll come along a bit more naturally, and I'll start seeing it as less of a waste of time or interfering with me working through my, owned unread physical TBR. Now on this list, I am saying 6 books to reread, but there's actually more because there's actually a few series in here, and I am counting those as one. So we actually have a total of 14 books on this list, but I am confident that I will be able to get through it. So I will go ahead and jump into the first series, which is actually the longest. And that is the Warrior series by Erin Hunter. This is a children's series. I'm pretty sure that it's for a young enough age group. I don't think it would be considered middle grade. But I read this back in elementary school, I'm assuming. So it is a group of books that follows cats as main characters. I don't remember much about this book, but I do think they get somewhat dark throughout the story. I mean, it is called Warriors, so these cats obviously are going to have to face some battles throughout this series. I believe there's 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 series in this world. I am just planning on reading the first series, which consists of 6 books. I'll probably read maybe 1 a month, and so it'll take me about 6 months to read them, but they will probably only take like a day or 2 to get through. The next series is a duology that I read. I think it's been a couple years now. I do own them on my Kindle and will probably read them that way again because I have the special covers for these that I don't want to mess up. And this is the Foxhole Court series, or all for the game series. And the first one is Foxhole Court. The second one is the Raven King, or is this the third one? No, so I think this is the second one, and then the King's Men is the third book. So this is a self-published series that follows a young man who is the son of a serial killer who works for this specific gang, mob, whatever they are, and he plays a made-up game called Exy, I think is how you pronounce it. It seems like it's similar to, is it lacrosse, where you play with the nets and you like throw the ball and try to get it into the goal? I'm not very good with sports, but it's similar to that. And he and his mother ran away from his father, and his mother ends up dying, and so he is on his own and ends up playing at this high school, where one day a college comes to scout him and asks him to play for their team. That team happens to be rivals with another team that is sponsored by the gang that his father ran. So he doesn't really want to do it, but they kind of don't give him a choice. So he's kind of living it up like it's his last year, expecting that as soon as he is, you know, in front of the camera on this team, his father will find him and murder him. So this series is kind of chaotic. It's also pretty queer, and relatively dark. There are a lot of trigger warnings in here. So if you're interested in the series, check it out. But I definitely have been meaning to reread this for a while. All right, so these are the last series. Another one I have is technically the first of the series, but I will only be rereading the first book. So this is the last series where I need to read multiple, and that is for The Last Sun, the tarot card sequence, or just the tarot sequence. So the first one is The Last Sun and the second one is The Hanged Man. I do own the third book, and I think the third book is the final one. I don't think I saw anything on Goodreads implying there would be more, but of course, you know, you never know. So this is a series that I really, for some reason, don't remember much about, which is why I so desperately need to reread it before reading the third book. We're following a character who is Atlantean, I believe, but Atlanta was destroyed and they now live on an island, I think like near, probably like New York, somewhere on the East Coast. And there are these houses of wealthy families that are based off the tarot cards. And his house was completely destroyed. Everyone in his family is dead except for him and his friend. And they are now kind of hiring themselves out to I don't remember what they're doing, if they're collecting debts or beating people up or acting as like bodyguards, things like that. And one day he is asked by a member of another wealthy family to help him find his brother, who I think was kidnapped, and the story kind of goes from there. It is an urban fantasy. I'm not always the biggest fan of urban fantasy, but I did enjoy the characters of the story, and the storyline was intriguing as well. This series also has some trigger warnings, especially since our main character, on the night that his family was slaughtered, was sexually assaulted, and it does go into a bit of detail of that occurrence, so just check that out before getting into those books if that is a trigger for you. Then for one book that I don't own yet, but I'm hoping to either get it gifted or purchase it, that is The Princess Trap, I believe it's called, by Talia Hibbert. I have loved every book that I have read by her, and definitely would like to re-experience them. This is one that I read quite a while ago after, I think, reading the Brown Sister trilogy. I think I read those first, but I do remember enjoying it, but I seem not to remember it as well as the Brown Sister trilogy, so I do want to purchase it, add it to my personal library, and then enjoy it once again. This is about a woman who works for a school. I think she's in the HR department, and a wealthy man wants to, I think, maybe make a donation to the school, or something along those lines, and they end up meeting and being caught by the paparazzi in a compromising position. And so they decide to pretend to be engaged because he is actually a member of a royal family and they're trying to avoid scandal. So her books are always really fun, really sweet, really steamy, and I just had a good time from what I remember, and I'm excited to experience it again. For the second to last one, I would like to reread Howl's Moving Castle by Dana Wayne Jones. I, for the longest time, did not even know Howl's Moving Castle was based off of a story, and read it for the first time early last year, and I think the story was quite different from the movie. And I was almost somewhat distracted by all the differences that I never really get felt fully immersed into the story and didn't really experience it as much as I would like to. Now that that shock factor is out of the way, I really want to take my time and just really absorb all the details of the story, because it was just a lot of fun. It was a lot more humorous than the movie was. Hal was a lot more eccentric, and Sophie was a lot more sassy and outspoken, things like that. So really enjoyed this story, but just didn't feel like I got everything that I could have out of it during my first read. And it's, you know, a young adult, and the typing is huge, so I could probably finish it in a couple days pretty easily. And for the final one, this one will probably be read in either January or February. It is definitely going to be the quickest read because it is a graphic novel, and that is Volume 1 of Fence by C.S. Pacat, Jonathan the Mad, and Joanna LaFuente. So I read this a couple years ago, and then I just never picked up the rest of the comics. I'm really bad at purchasing comics, just because it takes me like 30 minutes to read them, but they're still the same cost as like a full book, as they should be, because just as much work went into them, and the art and the story and everything. But I just struggle with it a little bit more. Last year I ended up getting Volume 2 as a gift, but I was working my way through Monstrous, so I didn't start another comic series. But now I was gifted the final volume of Monstrous, which I'm very excited for. So I'll be finishing that in January. And so I will be ready to either pick this up in January as well, or in February. And I believe there are 5 volumes out at this point, as well as 2 novels. And I'm just a huge fan of C.S. Pacat, as you can see. So I definitely want to read everything that she does. This is supposed to be very queer, and we're just following a young man who goes to kind of like a private school on a fencing scholarship, and his father used to be a very famous fencer, but is no longer in his life, and he himself comes from a background of poverty. So it's just about this kid going into, you know, this rich snobby school, and just him making, I'm assuming, friends, and I think there might be a relationship with his stuck-up roommate at some point. I do think it is pretty slow burn, but I enjoy the artwork, and of course C.S. Pacat's storytelling. All right, guys, so those are the 6/14, I guess, books that I want to read in 2022. Let me know down below if you are someone who rereads very often, or if it's just, you know, something that you struggle to do a bit more like I do. And let me know if there are any books that you are hoping to reread in the year of 2023. As always, thank you so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!